Before a game console releases, they're of course subject to multiple revisions, drafts, and idea changes along the way. For example, this is what the original PlayStation 3 was meant to look like. The classic design layout of the PS2 and PS1 controllers were completely overhauled in favor of this boomerang looking thing, which, in all honesty, I have no idea how it would even function as a controller. Not only is it shaped weird, but it also looks huge for a controller, like double the size of the PS3 controller we got, and probably even bigger than the original Xbox controller. In fact, maybe that's even what they were going for. I mean, perhaps they were making an effort to appeal to the Xbox crowd of console owners who enjoy giant, bulky, inaccessible controllers and nothing else. Likewise, the original concepts for the Xbox 360 didn't differ as significantly from the one we got, but do contain some very noticeable differences. The most glaring of them is that some look like they're trying to be some sort of intergalactic storage device. I'm guessing that's kind of what they were going for, but it's no surprise none of these got past the idea stage. However, what about consoles that never made it out of the idea stage at all? They didn't get revised, overhauled, or anything like that. Just completely and entirely thrown to the curb, never to be played or discussed again. That's what we'll be talking about today. This is the bizarre world of scrapped game consoles.
He said it! He said it!
The first console we'll be discussing is the Atari Panther, which, oh look, it appears was planned to release before I was born. Due to this fact, I am ineligible to be discussing this because I was not present when this console was being drafted. Moving on. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. The Atari Panther was being developed alongside the Atari Jaguar and was planned to be released before the Jaguar in 1991. Some planned games for this system include Cybermorph, Raiden, and Trevor McFur in the Crescent Galaxy. The console was gonna run on a Motorola... Oh my god. The console was gonna run on a Motorola 68,000 CPU, contain 32 kilobytes of fast static RAM, and hold cartridges of up to 6 megabytes of capacity, which was pretty good for back then. Or at least so I'm told. So why didn't this console ever make it past development? Why was the general public never given access to the Atari Panther? Well, there's one main reason. You probably remember how the Panther was planned to release before the Jaguar in 1991. However, the Atari Jaguar was developing at a much faster rate than anyone initially expected, and it was simply unrealistic for them to release the Panther preceding a console that was essentially already complete. Moreover, the Panther suffered a bug in which the graphics chip would cause the console to omit noisy static on the graphics output, which apparently they were just unable to fix for whatever reason, and hoped that the developers would find a workaround for it. But after a while, the Panther was quietly brushed aside, never to be talked about again. Can't say the same for this next one, though. Okay, so I know some viewers might not consider this to be its own console, and rather just a rendition of the SNES. But I personally find the SNES CD to be more of its own thing, in all honesty, and there's no fair reason for me to make a video like this and not include it. Released in 1990, the SNES was Nintendo's entrance to the fourth generation of gaming. However, the SNES ran on cartridges, but since it's now the 90s, CDs are seen as a new evolving form of technology, but Nintendo was still stuck in the past, embracing the use of cartridges for years by this point. Seems things never change. However, after the release of Sega's Mega CD in 1991, Nintendo sought to create their own take on the concept to combat its competitors, and entered negotiations with Sony to create this new project. At the Consumer Electronics Show in June 1991, Sony publicly unveiled its hybrid SNES-compatible console, the PlayStation, which supported both cartridges and CDs. However, the very next day, Nintendo turned their backs on Sony, announcing a partnership with Philips, essentially killing the project from the start. However, what would the so-called Nintendo PlayStation have been like? Well, to be honest, I think it's a blessing this project never worked out. Nintendo being associated with it doomed the console to be not nearly as good as the PlayStation we got. Remember, this is Nintendo in the 1900s, last millennium. They'd never release a game like Grand Theft Auto or Mortal Kombat on their system. How the times have changed. Anyways, I gotta say, there are very few truly scrapped game consoles, you know, completely original ideas that were just lost along the way. I mean, look, their expansion consoles and renditions, many of those have been cancelled in the past, but again, none of those are original systems. However, I ended up coming across a highly anticipated game console that unfortunately never fell through due to financial troubles, hardware issues, and just overall skepticism over the fact that it's essentially a PC with the shell of a console. It was sort of ahead of its time in a way, since this was pitched all the way back in the early 2000s, when digital gaming was not as mainstream as the present day, and this company pitched it as a digital-only, subscription-based system, practically. This actually goes a lot more deep than I would have anticipated. They have this other product they sold called a lab board. There should be a picture of it on screen. It's, I have no idea what this is supposed to be, or if it's COVID-related.